My name is Brian Skrobonja, and on this episode of the Common Sense Financial Podcast, parents often assume they make too much money to qualify, and why others don't realize how certain assets can quietly sabotage their eligibility. The truth is, financial aid isn't just about how much you earn, it's about how you're positioned and how strategically you have planned. FAFSA is a gatekeeper for most need-based aid. It's the form colleges use to determine your expected family contribution, calculated as a student aid index. And the higher that number, the less you are eligible for. But here's what's interesting. Surprisingly enough, retirement assets like your 401k or IRA pension, these things don't count against you.
Well, hey, everybody, and thank you for listening and joining us today. We hope that this podcast can provide you with some insights to help you grow and get closer to your goals this year. But before we get started, be sure to subscribe to this podcast. That way you'll be notified about new content and you'll be able to listen to Brian tackle a variety of different topics. So you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, pretty much anywhere that podcasts can be found. And all the links to subscribe, as well as past episodes, are available on the website at brianskrobonja.com. So thanks again for tuning in, and let's get started.
Opportunities are still there.
The attempt at passing down wealth from generation to generation.
Consider the outcome, not just popular opinion.
And the whole teaching there is about preparedness and being ready.
There's a difference between what's real and what's true.
You're listening to the Common Sense Financial Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Skrobonja. Thanks for tuning in, and let's get into today's topic. Funding and paying for college is something many parents have questions and are curious about. But if you have children, you know firsthand how quickly time passes by. And the hard truth is that many parents wake up and they're faced with these decisions about paying tuition, and they realize that college isn't just expensive, it can actually feel like a financial ambush. We've all seen the headlines about rising tuition, but many families don't fully understand what that really means until they start running the numbers. It's not just tuition, it's room and board, fees, books, labs, transportation, and incidentals. And when you total it all up, a 4-year degree can easily rival the cost of your first home. For the 2024 through 25 school year, in-state tuition at a public university was averaging around $11,000 a year. Out of state, it jumps up to about $30,000. And if your child is looking at a private university, you can prepare for sticker shock. Annual tuition and fees alone average more than $42,000. Now you add in the housing, the meals, textbooks, and other living expenses, the full cost of attendance pushes to nearly $29,000 a year for in-state public schools, $49,000 for out-of-state, and $63,000 for private colleges. And when you multiply that over 4 years, you're looking at a total cost of between, $108,000 to $250,000 per child. And that's not a rounding error. That's a seismic hit to your cash flow, your savings, and potentially even your retirement. Here's what's worse. These costs are compounding. College expenses have been rising faster than inflation for decades, and there's no indication that's necessarily going to change. What cost $10,000 a year in the early 2000s is now triple that. If you have young children today, you're staring down even higher costs by the time they graduate high school. Many parents are blindsided by how quickly those tuition bills arrive and how steep they are. I have 3 children myself. They're spaced out 5 and 6 years apart. They all attended the same university here in St. Louis, and the cost from my oldest to the youngest nearly doubled over that time. So I know firsthand the reality of this, and it's not just the raw cost that creates problems, it's the timing. These aren't monthly expenses you could just ease into. They come in lump sums, often twice a year, and they don't care what your budget looks like or whether your 401k is fully funded. What I see too often is parents reacting instead of planning. The bad decisions are often made from a sense of urgency with a set deadline to pay those tuition bills. But college is supposed to be an investment in your child's future, but too often it comes at the expense of your own future. The earlier you acknowledge this reality, the better prepared you'll be. College isn't a surprise party. It's an invoice you can see coming years away, but only if you're willing to look. This is where I see many financial planners get this wrong, and they don't help people develop a plan to help take the pressure of college expenses off the cash flow and retirement plans. It's one thing to want to help your kids graduate debt-free from a university. It's another thing entirely to sacrifice your future to make that happen. Right now, over 60% of parents say they expect college expenses to exceed what traditional savings plans and federal loans can cover. And more than half are making a gut-wrenching decision. They're planning to delay their retirement just to make ends meet. That's not financial planning, that's financial triaging. And when you think about it, the math is brutal. College bills don't show up gradually. As we've already said, they hit all at once. Fall semester, spring semester, room, board, fees, books. Every 6 months, like clockwork, you're hit with another multi-$1,000 invoice. This creates a lumpy cash flow pattern and problem that most families are completely unprepared for. And when the cash isn't there, people often begin pulling from places they really shouldn't. It really is all fair game and a financial panic. But every time you dip into your resources, you're robbing your future self. You're trading long-term security for short-term relief. But it doesn't have to be this way. The key is planning, not just for how much college will cost, but when those costs will hit and how they'll affect your monthly cash flow, your lifestyle, and your retirement trajectory. Because here's the truth. You can borrow for college. You can't borrow for retirement. The bank doesn't give you a loan when you're 70 and out of cash. And your kids, no matter how grateful they are for your help, they really don't want you sacrificing your own stability for their education. That's why it's critical to create a funding plan that preserves your long-term goals while still supporting your child's journey. Yes, that might mean being creative and going against the grain when building your wealth. And it might mean rethinking how much you're willing or able to contribute. But above all, it means facing the numbers head on and refusing to let emotion drive the decision. Because when it comes to your retirement, there's no financial aid. Ask any financial advisor how to save for college, and you're likely going to hear the answer of start a 529 plan. It's really the go-to vehicle for college funding, and for good reason. The tax benefits are attractive, money grows tax-deferred, and if used for qualified educational expenses, withdrawals are completely tax-free. All good things. And many states even sweeten the deal with deductions or credits for your contributions. So on the surface, it seems like a no-brainer, but we really need to slow down and take a look, because as with most things in finance, what works in theory doesn't always play out cleanly in real life. Yes, 529 plans offer tax benefits and upside potential. And if you know for certain that your child will attend college and you're confident you'll use the funds that strictly are tied to qualified expenses like tuition, room and board, books, and fees, this plan can be pretty good. You can contribute aggressively, even super funding up to 5 years worth of gifts in a single year, which is a powerful estate planning move if used strategically. But what happens when life doesn't go according to plan? Let's say your child receives a scholarship, joins the military, or decides to pursue a trade instead of college. Suddenly, all that money in that 529 is locked into a narrow use case. And if you want to pull it out for something else, you'll owe income tax on the earnings and a 10% penalty to boot. Yes, there is a way to transfer about $35,000 from the 529 to a Roth if the beneficiaries match and if you jump through several hurdles. But the reality is that it's impossible to know exactly how much will be needed and how much to save into these plans. There's also the matter of financial aid. While 529 plans are treated as parents' assets, which is better than being counted as the students', they still factor into FAFSA calculations. This could reduce your child's eligibility for need-based aid, grants, or work-study programs, even if your income level doesn't place you in the high net worth category. So where does this leave us? 529 plans are not inherently bad. In fact, they're a viable solution if used conservatively under the right circumstances and with proper timing. But they're not flexible, and they're certainly not fail-safe. If you're looking for control, flexibility, and the ability to pivot as your child's educational path evolves, a 529 plan might not check many boxes. It needs to be just a piece of your strategy, not the whole thing. You shouldn't do that for your retirement savings, and you shouldn't do that for your child's college degree either. It's about aligning your resources with your vision and making sure the tools you use today won't become a handcuff tomorrow. So what's the alternative? I have found that a specially designed life insurance contract, or what we call bill banking, is a uniquely capable tool to fund a college tuition. Now, when most people think about life insurance, they picture death benefits. They look at premiums and they see protection or a safety net for their planning. They don't really look at it as a cash vehicle. And while that's true, there's a side of life insurance that's often overlooked, one that can play a strategic role in college funding. Life insurance, specifically a permanent policy like a specially designed whole life policy, can be a powerful financial tool when it's structured properly, not just for protecting your family through the death benefit, but for building a flexible, tax-advantaged source of cash that can be used for major life expenses, including education and other things like retirement and just building wealth, generally speaking. So why isn't everybody talking about this? Why isn't everybody doing this? Well, the honest truth of it is that a lot of people are doing this, but it is complex. And because it's not a one-size-fits-all solution like a 529 plan, but if you're looking for flexibility, control, and financial aid protection, life insurance may give you options that other vehicles simply can't. Here's a way to look at this. When you establish a build banking program, you are creating a family banking system, and that can add a lot of flexibility into your financial plan and provide uninterrupted compounding tax-free growth. In other words, this isn't your everyday off-the-shelf life insurance design that takes decades to build any value or a lifetime of premiums to pay. These designs grow tax-deferred, and money can be accessed tax-free through policy loans. That means no penalties, no taxes, no restrictions on how you use the funds. And so when you compare that to a 529 plan, it's great for college. But 529s are only for college. You use those funds for anything else, and you're slapped with taxes and a 10% penalty. I mentioned my wife and I raised 3 kids, and what I learned is that their needs went beyond paying for college. They all played sports, and they had commitments at church, requiring them to need a vehicle. We also had 3 weddings to pay for. These are all large, big-ticket expenses, and I funded these things by using my personal banking policies for much of the big-ticket expenses, and it enabled me to control my cash flow while continuing to build wealth through the policy loans. Now, here's something else to consider. Cash value life insurance isn't reported on what they call the free application for federal student aid, or what is known as FAFSA. It's a way to have access to cash, but it doesn't necessarily count against you when applying for financial aid. That could be a huge advantage for families trying to maximize need-based assistance. 529s count against you in the process. And if your child doesn't go to college or gets a scholarship or decides to take a gap year and travel, with life insurance, the money's still yours. You can pivot. You can adapt. You're not trapped into a rigid account that only makes sense under one scenario. But this strategy isn't without downsides. Life insurance does come with its own limitations. These policies require funding to work properly, and while funding can be flexible, it does require 5 to 7 years of payments for it to work. And loans need to be managed properly, or the system will not live up to its full potential. And you need the right design. Not all policies are built for cash accumulation, and not all life insurance agents understand how to design these to work in this manner. You really need a contract that's structured right and is designed for maximum growth. That's not something you buy off the shelf. It's something you engineer with an advisor who knows how to do it right. This isn't necessarily a replacement for a 529. It can be a complement. But the bottom line is that life insurance, when used strategically, gives you leverage. It gives you options. It gives you the ability to support your child's education without compromising your financial aid strategy or your other financial goals. That's what real planning really looks like. It's about choosing the right combination of tools that keep you in control, no matter how the future unfolds. As far as the financial aid is concerned, for many families, financial aid can feel like a black box, a murky system of forms, formulas, and confusion. Parents often assume they make too much money to qualify, and why others don't realize how certain assets can quietly sabotage their eligibility. The truth is, financial aid isn't just about how much you earn. It's about how you're positioned and how strategically you have planned. FAFSA is a gatekeeper for most need-based aid. It's the form colleges use to determine your expected family contribution, calculated as a student aid index. And the higher that number, the less you are eligible for. But here's what's interesting. Surprisingly enough, retirement assets like your 401k or IRA pension, these things don't count against you. But on the other side of this, they aren't accessible, and they're designated for your retirement. So it wouldn't be the first place to go when needing money to pay tuition. But the cash value of a permanent life insurance policy, like the build banking design we're talking about, doesn't count against you either, and is not limited by your age to access cash to pay the tuition. Unfortunately, 529 plans, they do count against you. So do savings and checking accounts. So do taxable brokerage accounts. And student-owned assets such as personal savings accounts and custodial accounts and their name, those are hit even harder at a much higher rate against aid eligibility. So if you're someone trying to help your child create good savings habits or having them pay their own way, trying to do the right thing to teach responsibility, that can backfire when you discover that those can reduce the eligibility for grants, scholarships, and subsidized loans. It really is an ironic twist. You try to plan ahead, and the system penalizes you for it. But that's where Build Banking offers a compelling advantage. Not only can you build tax-deferred cash, but that cash is technically off the books when it comes time to apply for aid. It doesn't affect your student aid index, and it doesn't reduce your eligibility. This is why planning matters, because small decisions about where you place your money can lead to dramatically different outcomes. Two families earning the same income can receive vastly different aid packages based purely on how their assets are structured. And it's not just about assets. Income plays a huge role too. If you had a windfall in a year, maybe a business sale, a bonus, or some capital gains, it could skew your aid eligibility for the following school year. So timing matters. Asset location matters, and having a strategy that blends different tools from 529s to life insurance, for instance, can give you more control than you think. There's also nuance in how you pay. For example, direct tuition payments made by a grandparent aren't treated as gifts under federal tax rules, but they can affect aid calculations if not timed properly. Similarly, using a 529 withdrawal can reduce eligibility for education-related tax credits like the American Opportunity Credit. This is why a cookie-cutter approach won't work. College funding isn't just about saving, it's about being smart. And in many cases, that means incorporating tools that give you more flexibility and less exposure on those aid forms. The earlier you start, the more control you have. And the more you understand how financial aid actually works, the better position you'll be to help your child without hurting your own financial future in the process. Now, let me share a few insights into cash flow. So most parents spend years planning how to fund college. They contribute to savings plans, review aid options, they even research scholarship. But what catches many families off guard isn't the total cost. Again, it's the timing. And as we've already discussed, college expenses don't trickle in like a monthly utility bill. They show up in a massive non-negotiable lump sum payable up front in full. And that's the spike. It's not just expensive, it's ill-timed and financially jarring. These abrupt, concentrated expenses can wreak havoc on your cash flow. You may feel financially comfortable month to month, managing your mortgage, car payments, and everyday spending while saving and investing for your future. Then suddenly, you're staring down a $30,000 bill that's due in 30 days, and there's no wiggle room. That's when things unravel. Maybe you scramble to liquidate an investment at a loss or borrow from a retirement account that could potentially trigger taxes and penalties. Maybe you take out a Parent Plus loan or you tap into your home equity. Each of these things come with a consequence that can ripple far beyond a semester's tuition. And here's the kicker. This happens for 4 years or 5 or 6. So it's not just about affording college, it's about managing the timing of those costs without sacrificing your financial stability. This is why a well-thought-out strategy matters. You need liquidity, not just savings. You need to know where the cash will come from before the bills arrive. This is where cash flow management is important and why thinking in terms of lump sums is the wrong mindset to have when it comes to college and all types of big-ticket expenses such as cars and weddings. It is imperative for your wealth and retirement goals to have a cash flow plan in place that keeps these spikes in check and doesn't derail your confidence. I tell my clients that it's about creating a rhythm with your cash flow rather than simply thinking in terms of building cash. And that is exactly what a banking system does. It builds in a predictable rhythm to your financial life. And when there's a good finger-snapping rhythm, everything just seems to work. That concludes today's show. As always, if you want to learn more about how to build a private bank, visit buildbanking.com. I'm Brian Skrobonja. Thank you for listening to the Common Sense Financial Podcast. Thanks for listening to today's show. If you liked what you heard, be sure to subscribe on YouTube and Spotify so that you can receive notifications when we release new episodes. I'm Brian Skrobonja, and this is the Common Sense Financial Podcast.
Well, thank you for listening to the Forbes Top 10 rated Common Sense Financial Podcast. Before you go, I want to encourage you to jump over to brianskrobonja.com to access the full archive of blogs and podcasts. And if you want to be the first in line to get new content, you can sign up for free on the Brian Skrobonja website as well. If you're not following Brian on all the social channels, we'd love to have you join in on the conversation. Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, he's there. Lastly, if you've enjoyed listening to today's podcast, or if you have found value in any of our content, help spread the word by sharing our videos, podcasts, and posts wherever you get them. We greatly appreciate it and are glad that you took the time to join us today. Securities offered only by duly registered individuals through Madison Avenue Securities, LLC, member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services offered only by duly registered individuals through Skrobonja Wealth Management, a registered investment advisor. Tax services offered only through Skrobonja Tax Consulting. Mass does not offer billed banking or tax advice. Skrobonja Financial Group, LLC, Skrobonja Wealth Management, LLC, Skrobonja Insurance Services, LLC, Skrobonja Tax Consulting, and billed banking are not affiliated with Mass. Skrobonja Wealth Management, LLC is a registered investment advisor. Advisory services are only offered to clients and prospective clients where Skrobonja Wealth Management, LLC and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing carrier. This podcast is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual situation. Billed banking is a DBA of Skrobonja Insurance Services, LLC. Benefits and guarantees are based on the claims-paying ability of the insurance company, not FDIC-insured. Results may vary. Any descriptions involving life insurance policies and its use as an alternative form of financing or risk management techniques are provided for illustration purposes only, will not apply in all situations, may not be fully indicative of any present or future investments, and may be changed at the discretion of the insurance carrier, general partner, and/or manager, and are not intended to reflect guarantees on securities performance. The term billed banking, private banking alternatives, or specially designed life insurance contracts are not meant to insinuate that the issuer is creating a real bank for its clients or communicating that life insurance companies are the same as traditional banking institutions. This material is educational in nature and should not be deemed as a solicitation of any specific product or service. Billed banking is offered by Skrobonja Insurance Services, LLC only and is not offered by Madison Avenue Securities, LLC. Our firm is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during this show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein, provided by the third parties, have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by our firm. References to billed banking, private banking alternatives, or specially designed life insurance contracts are not meant to insinuate that the issuer is creating a real bank for its clients or communicating that life insurance companies are the same as traditional banking institutions. This material is informational in nature and should not be deemed as a solicitation of any specific product or service. Billed banking is not FDIC insured. Billed banking is offered by Skrobonja Insurance Services, LLC only, and is not offered by Madison Avenue Securities, LLC, nor Skrobonja Wealth Management, LLC.
The content of this video is provided for informational purposes only and is not a solicitation or recommendation of any investment strategy. Investments and/or investment strategies involve risk, including the possible loss of principal. There is no assurance that any investment strategy will achieve its objectives. This presentation does not take into account your particular investment objectives, financial situation, or risk tolerance, and may not be suitable for all investors. Information provided is not intended as tax or legal advice and should not be relied on as such. Before acting on any information mentioned, please consult with a qualified tax or investment advisor to determine if it is suitable for your specific situation.